Hi everyone! Today I will be talking about the Solarwinds Hack. You must be wondering who or what Solarwinds is. Solarwinds is an American company that develops software for businesses to help manage their networks, systems, and information technology infrastructure. Solarwinds is one of the world's leading producers of IT management software, and its software use is very widespread. One of the Solarwinds products is called Orion, and it is the target of the Solarwinds attack. The Solarwinds Attack is a supply chain attack that transformed the Orion software into a means of accessing private information globally. In this attack, the attackers were able to inject malicious code and create a malicious dynamic linked library, also known as DLL, that resembled the original Solarwinds Orion DLL, which allowed it to go undetected for months. We will touch on these details later. The SolarWinds attack is one of the largest supply chain attacks that has happened thus far and could cost up to $90 million. Supply chain attacks are attacks that involve breaching through a third party. Supply chain attacks currently have a growing base now that attackers have many third party resources available to them, making them more and more likely to occur. These attacks are hard to detect because even antivirus software may be unable to detect them, like in the case of the SolarWinds attack. The characteristics that made this attack successful is that it takes advantage of two best practices of maintaining software. It is best practice for a customer to update software from their trusted third-party software providers as soon as the update is released so that the customer can receive bug fixes and latest features. In this case, the attacker took advantage of this and hid the malicious script within the software update. Because neither the company nor the users were aware of it, the malicious software was easily spread to any customer who installed the update. Another good practice is to use trusted third-party softwares with a large customer base because that ensures that the software is trusted. However, the attacker targeted the trusted software in this case. Now let's explore some background information about the attacker. At the start of the investigation, the attacker of the SolarWinds attack was unknown, but there was speculation and some evidence of Russian officials attempting to breach government data since a lot of the data access was from different governmental entities, including the United States. The Russian officials denied the claim, so no distinct conclusion could be made about the attacker's origin at the time. In April 2021, Canada discovered that a group named APT-29, which operates under Russian intelligence services, is possibly behind the attack after they investigated the 100 Canadian entities that were affected. Investigation about the attacker is still ongoing. Here's what we do know about the attack's timeline. An attack group gained access to the network system and data of thousands of SolarWinds customers. The exact vector is predicted to be either a zero-day vulnerability in a third-party device or app, a brute force attack, or social engineering, but it is still being investigated. In September of 2019, the attacker accessed the SolarWinds network and injected test code into the network. The attacker used multiple servers based in the US and mimicked legitimate network traffic to circumvent the threat detection used by SolarWinds, its partners, and clients. The attacker then lay dormant for a couple weeks. Then, on February 20th, 2020, the main attack script that we know about, currently called Sunburst, was compiled and deployed to customers in the form of a software update. It was digitally signed by a valid digital certificate. Because it is best practice to update software as it comes out, the attackers were able to quickly spread the malicious code since the customers naturally updated their software. In June 2020, the malware was removed from build virtual machines by the perpetrator, but the malware was still undetected until December 11, 2020. After the attack was discovered, FireEye, Microsoft, the FBI, and other organizations all investigated the breach. The USA Treasury Department realized that email addresses of high-ranking individuals were compromised. President Joe Biden announced that he would make this breach his top priority. Orion released updates that were safe from malicious code to its users, and a kill switch was used to remove the hackers. Now let's dive into specific details about the technical side of the attack. As mentioned in the timeline, we call the script used in the attack the Sunburst script. This attack was actually a backdoor attack, and we will now discuss the specifics about the Sunburst backdoor. A backdoor attack is a type of breach where hackers install malware that can surpass a network's normal security requirements and authentication by deceit and proper hiding. After being placed, the Sunburst backdoor waits 2 weeks before it makes its first communication with the command and control server, also known as the C2 server. Attackers then send basic information back to the server, like username, IP address, and OS version, to gather information and dictate whether the specific server is useful. Based on the IP address, Sunburst either kills itself or waits to run another function, such as creating another backdoor or attempting to disable antivirus software. Sunburst also checks to see if it's running at an enterprise level. The Sunburst backdoor uses a custom subdomain generation algorithm to determine the C2 IP address so it can mimic and maintain legitimate communication with the Solarwinds Orion platform. It builds a unique subdomain for each victim and gathers local information to create a fully functioning domain, including the victim information. Attackers make a request to resolve the domain name and then get to control authoritative domain name server. They also send HTTP requests to the C2 domain with random but similar URIs to pass information with the HTTP body. The response could then trigger other commands to read or write files and restart the device. The code itself is able to detect whether antivirus tools are present. Another backdoor could then be created. All of this is done over time with random delays incorporated for each victim to avoid being detected as unusual activity. As of September 2021, another more recent backdoor has been discovered as a means of the attacker gaining access to the network. This backdoor is called Foggy Bottom. The Foggy Bottom backdoor is used to obtain user credentials that were used to access valuable information. First, the Active Directory Federation Services server was compromised with bug exploits. Then the backdoor is placed into the SolarWinds customer environments. The backdoor is encrypted with loader application that allows it to disguise itself as a Windows DLL so it can go undetected. When loaded, the backdoor receives administrator privileges. The attacker uses a remote access tool known as GoldMax to get into the network. Credentials can now be remotely obtained by the attacker. The Solarwinds attack is complex with several parts to it, so there is another theory not confirmed by the company yet. The attack is thought to have been done without zero-day vulnerability. Instead, attackers used FTP server credentials that were exposed on GitHub in 2018 to access the company's software update infrastructure. To do this, the attacker could make changes to software updates and add malicious backdoor to one of these SolarWinds Orion plugin DLLs, which was signed with the SolarWinds private key. In order to sign, the attacker could have done one of two things. The attacker could have gotten access to the developmental software process, added the backdoor and changes, and then let SolarWinds sign it while they deployed themselves. Or the attacker could have stolen the certificate's private key, signed the DLL themselves, and replaced the original dynamic link library with the malicious version. The second version is less likely to have occurred. When SolarWinds released its update, the malicious DLL was executed. Regardless, SolarWinds is a network management company whose Orion software is used by thousands of public and private companies all over the world. Customers include US, Canadian, and European Union governmental agencies, the US Department of Homeland Security, Microsoft, Cisco, Deloitte, Intel, FireEye, and even private customers. Out of the 300,000 customers, the data of about 18,000 organizations was breached. Unfortunately, because the attack was so large and a wide range of companies were affected, the exact reason for the attack is unknown for sure, although a lot of sensitive data was breached. The form of data that was accessed includes customer portal information, including name, email address, encrypted credentials, billing information, and IP addresses. The primary harm seems to be to the US government and the SolarWinds company itself. The secondary harm is to the other companies that had their information taken. The tertiary harm is to all other companies and customers who do and don't use SolarWinds, since their trust in third-party networking software could be diminished. In response, the company isolated the version of Orion that contained the malware and transformed it into a kill switch that disconnected the hackers from the system. Additionally, the investigation of the attack escalated to an international political level as the United States and its allies together assessed the situation and warned Russia to stop, while investigating other Russian-related cyber attacks. At this point, it seems that the motivation of the attack was political. This attack is very recent and one of the largest attacks in cyber history. It was very quietly and effectively placed in the system in a way that even antivirus software could not detect it. The company that was attacked was a very widespread company with a large customer base that spread out all over the world. The data that could have and might have been obtained from this attack is large. There are a lot of potential techniques to learn from this kind of breach, so any large cybersecurity company with resources as well as the government should take measures to patch up these kinds of vulnerabilities for the future. Here are the resources that I used for my project. and questions.